Oof, this did not go well for JD Vance. JD Vance just spoke in front of a very tiny crowd. There couldn't have been more than 150 people here. He spoke in Maine. He's traveling to so-called swing states to try to scare them into voting for MAGA Republicans. I'll show you what went down as JD Vance had to cut his speech early because he claimed that there was somebody who got sick at the event who needed a medical emergency evacuation. And so they shut down this press conference fairly quickly. This speech ended fairly quickly. Here, let's play this clip.
Guys, do we have somebody over here who's got an issue? Okay, let's get a doctor in here. Sounds like we got somebody who maybe fainted or... Got him? They got him, yeah. We got him? Okay. All right. So let's, if we would, ladies and gentlemen, if you would just make a pathway so the law enforcement and the doctors can get to that person. We okay? We're good? She's got care? Okay, sounds good. Well, I want to be respectful, so I'm not going to answer any more questions here. I'm going to let this person get the treatment and the care that she needs. Let me just say two quick words. Number one, let's all say a prayer for our friend here and make sure that God looks after him or her, looks after her health.
Then you can just take a look at just what this crowd looked like, so you can see for yourself how small it is. Let's play this clip.
We love you too, and it's great to be in Maine today. Now, before we get started, I got to poll the crowd a little bit because, it's lunchtime. And so when we get back on Air Force 2, I told the team we need to get lobster rolls now that we're here in Maine. So what is the recommendation of this Bangor crowd? Where do we get lobster rolls from?
Yeah, and so Susan Collins, the MAGA Republican senator of Maine, did not show up, which I think was kind of coordinated because she's trying to pretend that she's moderate. And then JD Vance was like, well, Susan Collins wasn't here. I wish she would work with me more. And it's so obvious what they're trying to pull here. Play this clip.
Now, my friend and former Senate colleague, Susan Collins, was not able to be here. Susan is back in D.C. She doesn't like to miss votes. And here's the thing I'll say about Susan Collins is sometimes I get frustrated with Susan Collins. I almost wish that she was more partisan. But the thing I love about Susan is she is independent because Maine is an independent state. And frankly, if she was as partisan as I sometimes wish that she was, she would not be a good fit for the people of Maine. So let's give a shout out to Susan Collins, who's doing a great job.
And then when you go to okay, well, what's their message for this election? Because they're just so bad and they've harmed so many Americans. They've ripped healthcare away. The economy is terrible. People can't afford anything. So, what do? Their usual playbook. They go and they attack immigrants and they say, if you look, the illegal immigrants are festering in Maine. They're festering here. Let me show you what he said. Play this clip.
Because if you look at the fraud that has happened in this state, if you look at the illegal immigrant communities who have taken benefits that ought by rights go to the people in this room, what you have in Maine is a festering problem where people have been taken advantage of and they've been stolen from, and your government hasn't done anything about it.
Then when talking about Medicaid and Medicare, he said, it's all the fraudsters. That's why we're taking it away from you. It's because of the fraudsters. Here, play this clip.
She has actually fought back against our efforts to identify fraud in the Medicaid and Medicare programs, which, by the way, not only does it steal from you, but it means that those programs are going to go bankrupt because all the money's going to the fraudsters. So let me ask you this simple question. Do you like having a government official who fights for illegal aliens over you? No! Do you like having a state governor who doesn't work with the federal government to fight against fraud? No! So let's kick Janet Mills to the curb. Yeah! And let's send Paul LePage to Washington to help us fight the fraudsters and protect all of you.
Then he says, there's so much fraud right now in the federal government, so it's easy to find the fraud. Well, okay, you're the federal government, and Donald Trump's literally been found civilly liable for fraud. Also, Donald Trump is a convicted felon as well. And as Alex Cole said, Trump supporters watch their guy run a fake charity, fake university, fake election claims, then clap when JD Vance lectures America about fraud. Donald Trump was literally found liable for financial fraud. Here, play this clip.
And we're going to talk about that because everybody asked me. The president asked me. I hear from people all the time who say, is going after fraud hard? And I say, unfortunately, no. Because there is a lot of fraud in the federal government. It's like fishing in a barrel. There is always something. Every week, I get a report from these guys, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it's unbelievable how much you have been fleeced by your own government.
And this is, again, the message that they say. I'm heartbroken by what's happened. The fraud being like, you're the fraudster. Like, your regime is the fraud. You are waste, fraud, and abuse, right? As Donald Trump's doing $1 billion ballroom, and let's paint the reflecting pool blue, and, and all the grift that he's doing. You're the fraudsters. Here, play this clip.
But because I love this state, I can say I am heartbroken by what has happened to the fraud that's being perpetrated on the taxpayers of this state. Because outside of Minnesota and California, which are probably number one and number two, if they're the gold medalist and the silver medalist, I heard somebody shout out New York. Maybe New York is the bronze medalist, but let me be honest, maybe Maine is the bronze medalist.
And then JD Vance continues down with the lie of, the Democrats are having dead people vote. That's why we need to send the National Guard and the military at your election places, because dead people aren't voting. But it's the same routine, right? Here comes an election, scare people, lie. This is the MAGA playbook, while they're the ones who pillage, while they are the ones who steal from you, while they are the ones who destroy your life. They just want to divide us with these scare tactics. Watch what JD Vance says. Play this clip.
Call me old-fashioned, but I don't think that dead people eat, so certainly they don't need food stamps. Unfortunately, they vote for Democrats, they don't vote for us, my friends. But why is it that we have people who are driving Lamborghinis? And that is true. People driving Lamborghinis who are getting low-income assistance that's supposed to go for housing and food for our people. Why?
And folks, we saw JD Vance also recently travel to Pennsylvania. It's part of this whole tour that he's going state to state, speaking in front of very tiny crowds, trying to scare communities into voting for an authoritarian. And I don't think it's going to work. I want to speak now to Bob Harvie from Bucks County, because as goes Bucks, so goes the country. One of the swingiest counties in the swingiest states, Pennsylvania. Bob Harvie is running against MAGA Republican Congress member Brian Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick doesn't hold town halls, and he's one of these guys who pretends to be moderate, but then votes with Donald Trump all of the time. I want to speak with Harvie because people are saying this is an important seat that Democrats can flip to win the midterms. Let's bring in Harvie. Let's bring in my interview with Harvie. Now I want to bring in Bob Harvie, running for Pennsylvania's 1st Congressional District. Now, Bob sits on the board of Bucks County Commissioners. You flipped that board blue, that 3-person commission, back in 2019. And we've all heard the expression, as goes Bucks, so goes the country, the swingiest district in a swing state. And so you kind of have the code of how you did it back in 2019, when lots of people were saying, could that be done? Your background is that you're a teacher. You've lived in Bucks County your entire life. You know the people there, and you're running against Brian Fitzpatrick. Now, if you look up Brian Fitzpatrick on Wikipedia, the first thing it says is moderate Republican. And that's his whole image that he portrays. I'm this moderate, I bring people together. And that's where he's trying to silo himself right now. Not too distant from Trump, but distant enough where he goes, look, I'm going to hold this guy accountable, but actions speak louder than words. And I think the people of Bucks are sick of these empty words from people like Brian Fitzpatrick, who say, yes, we're going to hold Trump accountable, but he votes with Trump essentially all of the time, the horrible Trump agenda, which has crippled Bucks right now. It's a Brian Fitzpatrick and Trump agenda. So talk to us, though, about what's going on in Bucks right now. You and I spoke back in February and things were grim. And here we are speaking in May. Let's first talk about what people are experiencing. And then let's talk about how you're going to deal with a guy who's a chameleon in Brian Fitzpatrick, who pretends to be something that he's really not. And do the voters get it at this point? So let's start up with Bucks. How are people doing? What's going on since we last spoke in February?
Well, thanks. Glad to be here again. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And it's really so a lot hasn't changed, but in some ways, a lot has gotten worse. Obviously, with everything that's going on with Iran, the damage that's doing to this economy. Gas pumps. I was at a gas station that's almost within sight of my office. I think it's this morning. It was $4.54 a gallon, and that's actually one of the cheaper gas stations in Bucks County. And that's the kind of pain that people are facing here in this district and in all over the country. And it's affecting working class people. It's affecting working families. It's affecting those people who are already living paycheck to paycheck. The people that Donald Trump clearly doesn't care about. The people that this Republican Congress don't care about, because they're not the ones putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into Brian Fitzpatrick's campaign coffers. And they're not the ones who got the big tax breaks that Brian Fitzpatrick voted for. But it's real pain for people. I was just talking over the weekend to a guy who's a researcher. He works at Temple University, does asthma research. And he said the cuts to NIH research funding have just been, killing, just researchers who are just trying to help, people live better lives, help kids, who have asthma so they can live the kind of life that every other kid wants to live. And that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff that people don't always see, they don't always hear about, but it's happening. And it's happening under this president, and it's happening under this congressman who's standing by and saying, oh, listen, like you said, he says, well, listen to what I say, but don't watch what I do. Don't pay attention to the fact that he voted to cut ACA tax credits. Don't pay attention to the fact that Fitzpatrick voted to cut funding for SNAP and Medicaid so that billionaires give a tax break. Don't pay attention to the fact that he just had Speaker of the House Mike Johnson here a couple of weeks ago to do a fundraiser for him in the district. So it's clear that Brian Fitzpatrick is worried. He spent 10 years in office now, really kind of screwing over the people of this district. And he's going to have to, be held accountable for it. That's what I'm trying to do.
I visited Bucks before. My younger brother Jordy lives nearby, and I'm surprised, Bob. The people there, they don't love the idea of golden ballrooms for Donald Trump. They don't love the idea of painting the reflecting pool American flag blue, or they don't like triumphal arches or turning the Rose Garden into a Mar-a-Lago style club. I mean, surely the number one priority, Bob, on the people's mind of Bucks County is UFC fights on the White House lawn, or ripping apart the public golf courses in D.C. to turn them into Trump vanity projects. So are you telling me that the Fitzpatrick-Trump plan to have Donald Trump live out whatever dystopian, sick fantasy that he has, you're telling me the Bucks, they're not cheerleading all of that? That seems to be what Trump and Fitzpatrick care most about right now.
Yeah, I know we're having fun with it, but when it comes down to it, when you've got families here that can barely afford rent, that are struggling to find a home, you have young people here who can't afford to start their lives in this district, county they grew up in, district they grew up in, where they want to live. They went to school here, came back after college, they're starting their lives, they work in the area, can't afford to stay here. This district is expected to lose population over the next couple decades. The only district really in the suburban Philadelphia area that's expected to do that. And it's because of affordability. People are having trouble, small business owners having trouble making ends meet in terms of, their health care. The tariffs are affecting them in terms of how they can, deal with, their customers overseas, and how they're dealing with customers at home, where they're usually raising prices so that they can cover the cost of the tariffs. And so, it is, of all the things that have happened, there's been a million examples of how out of touch, how callous, how incompetent this congressional leadership is, Brian Fitzpatrick is, Donald Trump is. The ballroom, I think, I'm wondering if it's going to put people over the top to say that you want to spend $1 billion on something that obviously, is really just for the president's ego. And that doesn't help people afford a house. It doesn't help them pay their mortgage or pay their rent. It doesn't make gas cheaper. It doesn't make healthcare cheaper. It doesn't help those kids who are struggling to get by. It doesn't help their schools. It doesn't help pave the roads. It doesn't help keep people safe. It doesn't do anything except give Donald Trump as an ego boost, which is the last thing he needs, quite frankly.
You got the big endorsement from Governor Shapiro. The election's coming up. May 19th is the primary. Then you go on to the general. So as you're traveling around Bucks, though, and Fitzpatrick, is ostensibly hiding from a lot of the voters of Bucks, but writing a lot of press releases to try to position himself as, look, I'm still your guy, and try to cut whatever last minute. Whatever the things he can do to say, look what I delivered you, this and that and the other thing. Remember, how do you communicate to the voters? I mean, a lot of it's just look at what's happening right now. But how do you do what you did in 2019 for the Bucks Commission here right now?
Well, a lot of it just comes down to what we did in 2019. Is we worked our asses off. We knocked thousands of doors. We went out and talked to people, met with people. I've done 6 town halls in the past year. Brian Fitzpatrick hasn't done a in-person town hall in 9 years. When you talk about hiding from voters, you talk about hiding from the people in your district, the people who you serve. He's the one who's bailing out of parades that he's supposed to be in because he doesn't want to interact with voters. He's afraid that, God forbid, there be a protester who might, not like something he did. He doesn't want to have to face that music. I'm the one who's out there every day, proud to be a county commissioner here in this county. This county makes up 90% of the district, focused on delivering results for people, focused on delivering results when it comes to mental health care funding, when it comes to public safety, when it comes to sustainability. We are doing great work here, and I'm going to make that, my mission to serve the people of this district. I'm proud to have Governor Shapiro's endorsement. He helped us get reelected in 2023. People know what a phenomenal job he's done as governor in difficult times, dealing with obviously a president who clearly doesn't like him and doesn't know what he's doing, and a divided legislature. He is going to roll through re-election the way he rolled through the first time when he was elected. I'm proud to be on the ballot with him and looking forward to work with him. He grew up just outside the district. His wife's actually from the district. So it's sort of the way we tease him is that, and sometimes here in Bucks County, we say we love Josh, but we love Lori a little more because she's from here. But now it's going to be, the people of this country are starting to realize what a force he is, like we know here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but don't ask him who won in basketball, him or Jordy. You'll get conflicting answers. But that'll be for another day. Where can people learn more about the campaign? Where can they learn more about you?
Well, my website is Bob Harvie for Congress. I'm on Act Blue as well, and I really appreciate the support. What's going to be telling here is the funding. Brian Fitzpatrick has had 10 years to build up all his corporate PAC money. I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I'm proud to be endorsed by people like Josh Shapiro, proud to be endorsed by End Citizens United and the New Democrats, people like Madeleine Dean as well, Congresswoman next door. But if everybody who's watching this podcast can go to bobharvieforcongress.com and, chip in $5, you can help me close this gap real fast. And we can make sure that we can take this fight to Brian Fitzpatrick and win this seat because we need to win this seat.
Bob Harvie, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.